each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Guten Morgen for my German listeners. I don't know how else to say good morning in any other language. I know how to say good night in German, which is guten Nacht. I also know Scheißkopf, which means shithead. I think. At least that's what my mom told me. Oh, I guess I know another one. Konnichiwa. Hola. I guess I do know a few more. Morning, Leisure. Good morning, The Leisure. Amber's mooing. Oh, we Virgos are weird. We like when I go to therapy, I do it online. And they always want to take a picture of you first to make sure that they're talking to. So I always do weird stuff. Like I'll put on that Darth Vader mask. I'll put a cat there. The other day I just had my cat and I just, ooh, just a little bit of fucking around, having some fun in life, Kind of proud of myself right now. One of the meetings I go to, they're kind of begging for money. I think I brought that up before. And it was ticking me off. And I stayed after a little bit today. They were talking about it again. And instead, God gave me the right answer. And thank you, God, because these are good people. These are good. They are. They're trying to help some people. And so I said, hey, I know that detoxes and hospitals have kind of cut us off, but if you want, there's a lot of things that I do in the community that'll help bring newcomers to the meetings for you. By doing some outreach, maybe you could go set up a stand at Kaiser Permanente or the park, even in these public places, and just answer any questions that you can. And they're like, oh man, those are great new ideas. These are not new ideas. Okay, but still doesn't matter. So instead of fighting the river, you got to go with the flow. And sometimes you got to change your sails to kind of match that, right? So I'm also looking at a part-time job with Amazon right now. We will see. We'll see. I'm going to talk to them at 1:00. Be 1 to 2 hours a day, which works for me as long as I get to work at home. And it's, I don't know. Amazon isn't too bad. So Kathleen, good morning. Good to see you. Good to see you. So today we're going to be talking about step 1. In fact, we're going to be reading from the 12 by 12 on step 1. Welcome to Daily Trudge. My name is Dion. I've always been and always will be the host of the Daily Trudge. I've tried co-host. There was even one person where I was like, I can't do it today. They're like, I'll do it for you. They came back and they said, that's hard as fuck. And I never heard from them again. But welcome to the Daily Trudge. Dion, if you're here, please say hello, whether watching the live or the rewatch. Good morning, Clara Joyce. Clara Joyce says, duck, duck, goose. All right. Which is a game we play in America where people sit in a circle, right? And what happens is you go around and you touch their head, and if you're a duck, you stay there. But if somebody calls you goose, then you got to jump up real quick and chase that person around the circle, right? And if you can tag them before they get back to your spot, then you're safe, but it doesn't usually work out like that. All right. Amber said, I sold a woman Dion today. I didn't know I was for sale, but okay. She just saying I have kind of a weird name. I have an unusual name. So Kathleen, who's in Canada, says, "Hey, we play Duck Duck Goose also." Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not mean to keep the Canucks out of that. I have a lot of listeners in a lot of different lands, and everybody probably plays it. I don't know, but let's get started today. Step one, we admitted. See, step one, the longest step is what I call it. And why do I call it that? Because if you drank for 20 years, it took you 20 years to do the first step. However long your drinking career was, tells me how long it took you to do step one. All right. It comes from, the game came from Sweden, according to Google. So see, here I am, a naive American who doesn't even know where it came from. That's okay. That's okay. And it's called Anka gas in Sweden. Now we know. And knowing is half the battle. All right. So we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. That's the first part. That our lives had become unmanageable. It's hard for people to understand that their life had become unmanageable when they got a ton of money in the bank and 2 cars in the garage and a decent house and a good looking lawn. It's hard. It's hard to imagine that. It's a lot easier to understand that your life is unmanageable if you're living on Skid Row, right? Okay. Now, materialistic things are not the unmanageable portion. On page 52, we have what's called the bedevilments, and that's what I would call a landing spot. Good afternoon, Patricia. I will get to what Leisure's saying here in a second. All right. Actually, let's just go ahead and get to it. He said, "I would join you one day. My second meeting 6 years after my first meeting, I sat in the chair completely broken, reading the banner steps on the wall. When I read step word, the unmanageable was as large as the banner. I knew at that point I was in the right place." Yeah. So, and Leisure, just let me know. Just let me know. I'll send you the link and we can set up a time and stuff, and you and I can go live. I've been trying to do them about 11 o'clock, but sometimes I meet at 11 o'clock, right? So the bedevilments are things like couldn't keep a job, couldn't hold a relationship, felt useless, couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. It does not say, I lost my cars, I lost my wife, I lost my house, no, it doesn't say that. Materialism is not compared. It cannot be put in with unmanageable. All right. So who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. Every natural instinct cries out against the idea of personal powerlessness. It is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our mind into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. No other kind of bankruptcy is like this one. Alcohol, now become the rapiest creditor, bleeds us of all self-sufficiency and its will to resist its demands. Once this stark fact is accepted, our bankruptcy as going human concerns is complete. All right. Now, the thing is alcoholism, the addiction to alcoholism is different. It is different than all the other addictions out there. I know a lot of people don't agree with me, and you're not required to. It's just my experience. I feel like we're born with this disease. Not anybody can be an alcoholic. There are people, you cannot just be an alcoholic because you drink too much. It's not what it is. You won't be capable of doing it. Your body isn't set up like mine. See, we alcoholics, number one, we're born with a high tolerance to alcohol. That is the very first indicator. That's why you see these 90-pound women drinking 200-pound men under the table, because their threshold to alcohol is higher than yours, and we are born that way. Our tolerance goes up quicker. Once we take the first drink, we cannot stop. It becomes insatiable the minute we take the first drink. Okay. And I'm certainly not putting other addictions down. I'm just trying to create some clarification here. Here's the other thing. Okay. So not anybody can be an alcoholic, but anybody can be an addict. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't even matter if you have an addictive personality. Doesn't matter if you've gone through trauma. It doesn't matter if you got your back broken. It doesn't matter. Anybody can be addicted to drugs, and it's just as lethal. Okay. It can, in fact, drugs can take you down quicker than alcohol. So, there's a lot of stigma that goes towards alcohol. Well, why can't you just use your willpower? You know, they're like the drugs, we understand. No, they don't do that either. Right. So just give you a little clarification that alcoholism is different. It says no other bankruptcy is like this one, and they are correct. Even back in 1939, they were correct. Actually, I think this came out in 1960. Right. Even then, it was a long time ago. Right. So once King Alcohol bleeds us of all of our self-will and all of our demands, our bankruptcy as going humans is concerned is complete. What that means is step 0, the psychic change. Okay. And the psychic change, we got to keep it simple. Psychic means mind. Change means changed. We changed our mind. Our behavior is no longer acceptable. My grandson's upstairs screaming, so I'm shutting the door because it's a little distracting. I know you can't hear it because I got a decent microphone. But yeah, so let's keep going here. But upon entering AA, we soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps toward liberation and strength. Our admission of personal powerlessness finally turns out to be the firm bedrock upon which a happy and purposeful life may be built, right? And why is that? We alcoholics have the cart before the horse. It's just our way of thinking. Fear is a great example. We think our fears go away. No, what we get is more courage. Our fears don't really diminish, maybe a little bit, because courage can counteract that. And what you do is you go through hard things, come out the other side, knowing and finding out that you're okay, and that supplies you with more courage. All right. I may have to do a little pause in about 8 minutes just to do something real quick. We know that little good can come to any alcoholic who joins AA unless he has first accepted his devastating weakness and all of its consequences. And what do we call that? We call that bottom. Right. A lot of you will, well, this is a repeat for a lot of people, but I do not go with the rock bottom. Rock bottom doesn't exist. In my experience, it's only been one trap door after another. That's all it's been. Okay. Your bottom is your bottom. And there's a young man that was in the meeting today. He was 24. And people keep saying this shit. If there's a young person in there and you're a little bit older like me, don't say, I wish I would have gotten sober and come to my senses like you. It's just fucking rude. All right. Poop coming in 8 minutes. Okay. No, I don't have to poop in 8 minutes. I have to make an announcement so the grassroots. But good call. All right. But yeah, don't say that to young people. I spilled more on the bar than you ever drank. You know what that just sounds like to me? You didn't settle your past, so you haven't done your 4th and 5th step. That's what you're saying when you do that. It's anger. What you're doing is you're putting your guilt on a younger person. Stop doing it. Treat them like you would everybody else. All right. Until he so humbles himself, his sobriety, if any, will be precarious. Of real happiness, he will find none at all. Proved beyond doubt by an immense experience, this is one of the facts of AA life. The principle that we shall find no enduring strength until we first admit complete defeat is the main taproot from which our whole society is sprung and flowered. See, I don't have willpower. I have strength. Aha! There's that cart before the horse. I never had willpower when it came to alcohol. I have willpower for a lot of other things, but I'd rather use God than my willpower if I can. I'm not saying I don't have to use my willpower every now and again. I had to use it for emotional sobriety. God, my phone keeps dinging. Ding, 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 ding. All right. That's my it's one of my sponsees. You're saying in the meeting that his son keeps asking him why he has to blow into something to start his car. And he doesn't know how to approach it. Even his therapist, I thought his therapist would have figured it out. Anyway, doesn't matter. You know, and when he's explaining, it's like, oh, yeah, daddy was fucking stupid and da da da. Oh, no, God, no. No. Because you don't lie to a kid. You got to figure that out too. So we keep things simple. We got to always keep things simple. Right. And my suggestion was tell him that daddy broke the rules. He's only like 3-4 years old. Daddy broke the rules, and these are the consequences. That's it. And I said, no name calling, even of yourself. Don't do that. If he wants to know why, tell him you'll let him know when he's a little bit older and he understands better. That should satisfy him. And you're not lying. No. No. He's learning. He's learning. You know. But whenever you approach somebody and maybe you're explaining why, don't call yourself names, especially in front of your children. Because then they're going to think that way of you. And then they'll start calling themselves names. Do you want them to start calling themselves stupid and dumb? That you fucked up. You know, oh, I fucked up. God, that is such a swing. You didn't fuck up, you learned. All right, cart before the horse. All right. When first challenged to admit defeat, most of us revolted. Of course we did. I revolted. You tell me what to do. We didn't tell me what to do, but gosh, it was pretty apparent that Dion didn't know what the fuck he was doing when he's 18 years old and living on Skid Row. I had to admit I was unmanageable. I had to admit it. And you know why I ended up there? Because people created rock bottom for me. Or maybe I wouldn't have ended up there. I probably still would have. Right? So we had been approached. We had approached AA expecting to be taught self-confidence. No, you're going to get more strength, more courage. Then we have been told that so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence was no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. Yep. The reason, see, self-confidence goes along with that excitement. I've seen more people go out and relapse because something good happened in their life. Because it's that cart before the horse again. No, it's any emotion in overuse by an alcoholic is dangerous. Period. Exclamation point. Our sponsors declared that we were victims of a mental obsession so subtly powerful that no amount of human willpower could break it. What does that mean? It means you didn't have a choice. You were not given the choice whether you were an alcoholic or not. That choice was not there. That choice is not. I talk about choice all the time, but this is one place where I don't have a choice whether I'm an alcoholic or not. I am. It's a mental illness. Okay. Now I don't go that we were victims. Okay. So this is how I say you didn't have a choice. You weren't given the choice. You were an alcoholic. This was going to happen no matter what. This is This is not, when people talk about breaking the generational curse of alcoholism, you have no control over it. You have no power over that. I'm sorry. The best we can do is teach them young where they need to go if and when it happens. That's the best that we can do. But now we are going to take responsibility for our actions. Yes, we are. We have to. And Claire Joy says a broken shoelace. Yeah, that could do it. It's usually something small. Okay, the little things kill, but they also build. There was no such thing as personal conquest of this compulsion by the unaided will, relentlessly deepening our dilemma. Our sponsors pointed out increasing sensitivity to alcohol, an allergy, they called it. The tyrant alcohol wielded a double-edged sword over us. First, we were smitten by an insane urge that condemned us to go on drinking, and then by the allergy of the body that ensured we would ultimately destroy ourselves in the process. Few indeed were those who, so assailed, had ever won through single-handed combat. It was a statistical fact that alcoholics almost never recovered on their own resources, and this had been true apparently since man had first crushed grapes. Now, the thing is, when it comes to alcoholism, what it does is it separates you. You start drinking alone. You start drinking alone. I'm doing what I said I needed to do at this time. I got to do a little bit of scrolling. Now, so since it's separated you, we tend to think that we can do this on our own because we've done everything on our. Well, why wouldn't I be able to do this? Well, look where it got you. Look where your best thinking got you. I know my best. I know my best thinking got me drunk every single time. Every single darn time. My best thinking got me drunk. Okay. The opposite of addiction is connection. It is community. It is brotherhood. We need people in our lives. And in the beginning, it sucks because you don't know how to have these relationships. That's what's really going on. You don't know how to have them. Right. So you need to learn a little bit. And that's why it's even more important that we approach the newcomer and quit letting them just flounder on the floor like a fish out of water. Right? That's why it is important. But we need each other. This is a we program, not a me program. All right. In AZ's pioneering time, none but the most desperate cases could swallow and digest this unpalatable truth. Even these last gaspers often had difficulty in realizing how hopeless they actually were. But a few did. And when these laid hold of the AA principles with all the fervor with which the drowning sees life preservers, they almost invariably got well. That is why the first edition of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, published when our membership was small, dealt with low bottom cases only. Many desperate alcoholics tried AA, but did not succeed because they could not make the admission of hopelessness. Most of you would have been allowed in. I would have. I was at 45 and I met all the qualifications according to that. Thankfully that changed. And they're going to talk about it next. So it is a tremendous fact to record that in the following years, this changed. Alcoholics who still had their health, their families, their jobs, and even 2 cars in the garage began to recognize their alcoholism. As this trend grew, they were joined by young people who were scarcely more than potential alcoholics. They were spared that last 10 or 15 years of literal hell the rest of us had gone through. Since step 1 requires an admission that our lives have become unmanageable, how could such people such as these take this step? Thanks, Leisure. Leisure says, I'm glad I get to trudge with you. Yeah. And that's what we're doing, trudging together, which is actually the name of my company. The whole thing's called Trudging Together. And then I have Raw Recovery, the Daily Trudge. We have meetings. We have things like that. All right. But but Trudging Together is the parent company. The rest are sister companies, right? But trudge means to move forward in arduous situations. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do that together. We do that together. All right. All right. I love this next paragraph. It was obviously necessary to raise the bottom the rest of us had hit to the point where it would hit them. There you go. Meeting others where they're at. Hey, this is what I went through. This is what you have to look forward to. These would be the yets for some people. It's not a requirement. There's no requirement that says you have to go through what I went through. And it's actually one of the reasons why I do what I do. Okay. So that people out there understand that getting sober at a younger age is certainly a great thing. Absolutely. I'm very proud of you for doing that and sticking with it. Do I have some regrets that, because I had 12 years of sobriety. Do I have any regrets? No. But I'm going to tell you something. I had to work hard to not have any more of those regrets. And I don't want you to have to go through it. I'd rather you had a great fucking life. And I'm not going to get jealous because it didn't happen for me. I made the damn choice. I made that choice not to go back to AA. I made the choice to start skipping meetings, not talking to a sponsor, not having closed mouth friends, straying away from the program. I made that decision. Okay. Said, no, I'm not going to get jealous over what am I going to do? I'm going to rejoice. I'm going to rejoice for you. I'm happy for you. I absolutely am. I think it's great. I've got my own great life. And I am who I am today because of what happened in my past. And I'm okay with that because I love me today. And that's all that matters. By going back in our drinking histories, we could show that years before we realized that we were out of control, that drinking even then was no mere habit, that it was indeed the beginning of a fatal progression. Remember how excited you got as a kid when you're going out and you're going to meet all the guys at the barn, all your friends at the barn, you were going to hoop it up because there was no parents around. I grew up in a few rural areas. Well, Littleton used to be rural. It's not anymore. We used to go to a place called Daniels Park. Now it's a golf course. But there were so many of us up there, and it was all dirt road up there that they didn't bring the police cars. They brought paddy wagons and helicopters. Oh, it was so fun running from them. We'd all run and just meet at a different park. Patricia says it's not material things I lost. It's the spiritual things such as dignity, being humble, kind, love, and understanding. Yes, Patricia, thank you for letting us know that other landing spot that we can all land on, material or not. We all went through those things. The other thing that we lost, every single one of us, and that's kind of what Patricia is saying, is ourselves. I lost me. I sold my soul for a spirit. Yes, I did. That our drinking even then was no mere habit. To the doubters, we could perhaps you're not an alcoholic after all. Why don't you try some more controlled drinking? Bearing in mind, meanwhile, that what we have told you about alcoholism. This attitude brought immediate and practical results. It was then discovered that when one alcoholic had planted in the mind of another the true nature of his malady, that person could never be the same again. And that's what I do. On my Facebook page, it's the description. And mine says, I ruin drinking careers. And it's true. That's what I do for a living. You give me 20 minutes, your thought process is never going to be the same again. because we have depth and weight. Yeah. And I'm going to plan in there. Why am I doing that? Because I want them to know that there's a place for them when they're ready. That's all I'm doing. I'm just planting a seed. I don't need to be mean about it. I don't need to be rude. I don't need to try and shove it down their throat. It is up to them. It is their life. It is their recovery. And I have no business messing around with it. All right. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit here. Following every spree would say to himself, maybe those AAs were right. After a few such experiences, often years before the onset of extreme difficulties, he would return to us, convinced he had hit bottom as truly as any of us. John Barleycorn himself had become our best advocate. Why all this insistence that every AA must hit bottom first? The answer is that few people will sincerely try to practice the AA program unless they have hit bottom. They didn't say rock bottom. They're just saying bottom. Okay? For practicing AA's remaining 11 steps means the adoptions of attitudes and actions that almost no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. Who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? Who wants to confess his faults to another and make restitution for harm done? Who cares anything about a higher power, let alone meditation and prayer? Who wants to sacrifice time and energy in trying to carry AA's message to the next sufferer? No. The average alcoholic, self-centered in the extreme, doesn't care for this prospect unless he has to do these things in order to stay alive himself. All right, I got to finish this up. So, under the lash of alcoholism, we were driven to AA, and there we discovered the fatal nature of our situation. Then, and only then, do we become as open-minded to the conviction and as willing to listen as the dying can be. We stand ready to do anything which will lift the merciless obsession from us. Hi, Michelle. And you're not really going to have to do much in order for that obsession to be removed. You just got to believe it. You just got to look for a higher power and start to believe in that higher power. Yeah. Leisure says you help ruin drinking careers. The drinker had a part too. Yes, they did. Or I wouldn't be able to ruin drinking careers, would I? All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day. I'm sure I'll be back again a little bit later. I love you. You know I do. Peace out.